Everybody knows by now, the Las Vegas Raiders tried to get Matthew Stafford, but in the end, Stafford decided to stay with the Los Angeles Rams. Now, here's what people don't realize. The Raiders aren't giving up. They're still searching for the right quarterback, and it won't be Aiden O'Connell or Jimmy Garoppolo. The team is determined to bring in someone new. And speaking of big moves, let's take a quick break. If you want to stay updated with the latest NFL news, make sure to subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, and don't forget to turn on the bell icon. Now, let's get back to the breaking news. A new report from NFL insider Tony Pauline says the Raiders are now focusing on Sam Darnold. According to sources close to Darnold, which, let's be honest, is probably his agent, Raiders coach Pete Carroll is pushing to make a deal for the Vikings quarterback. Now, let's think about this for a second. The Raiders already showed they were willing to spend big. They reportedly offered Matthew Stafford a 2-year contract worth up to $100 million. If they were ready to pay that much for Stafford, why wouldn't they make a similar move for Darnold? Of course, some fans might be skeptical. "I'll believe it when I see it," they might say. And that's fair. Raiders fans have heard big rumors before. First, it was Ben Johnson. Then, Matthew Stafford. But here's the key difference. The Raiders actually made offers and had serious meetings. Tom Brady personally met with both Ben Johnson and Matthew Stafford. That wasn't just talk, it was real. So, what does this tell us? The Raiders' front office isn't sitting back. They are actively making moves to build a winning team. Whether or not Darnold joins, one thing is clear. The Raiders are serious about finding a top quarterback. The only question is, who will it be? If the Raiders are serious about winning, then signing Sam Darnold might be the right move. He's not just an upgrade at quarterback, he's a big upgrade. Unlike their current options, Darnold can move with his legs, play under pressure, and make big throws when it matters most. And if he's paired with a smart offensive coordinator, he could be exactly what the Raiders need. Now, here's something to think about. The Raiders were willing to pay Matthew Stafford, a 37-year-old quarterback, nearly $50 million a year. If they had that money ready for Stafford, why wouldn't they offer a solid deal to Darnold, who is younger and has plenty of room to grow? Of course, it all depends on the market. Right now, there aren't many teams desperately looking for a quarterback. The Titans, they have the number 1 overall draft pick, so they'll probably take a rookie. The Giants, they're focused on trying to land Aaron Rodgers. That leaves just one serious contender for Darnold, the Raiders. This could be a perfect opportunity for Las Vegas. Since there's not a huge bidding war for Darnold, they could sign him for a reasonable contract, maybe around $35 to $40 million per year. He'd get a chance to prove himself, and if he succeeds, he could land a much bigger deal in a few years. But some fans might say, why not just draft a young quarterback instead? That's a fair question, but here's the problem. Drafting a rookie quarterback is always a gamble. Take Shedeur Sanders, for example. Just a few months ago, many thought he was a top prospect, but now, reports from the NFL Combine say he's not even in the top 2. Suddenly, Cam Ward is seen as the clear number 1. And the battle for second place is between Jackson Dart and Sanders. If the Raiders use their number 6 overall pick to draft a quarterback, they won't know if he'll develop into a star. And what happens if he struggles? The team would have to wait 2 or 3 years to see if he improves. By then, head coach Pete Carroll might retire, and the current coaching staff could be gone. That's why a proven veteran like Darnold might be the better choice. He's ready to compete right now. The Raiders have one of their best coaching staffs in years. They can't afford to waste this opportunity. Look at teams like the 49ers. They had a Super Bowl-caliber team under Kyle Shanahan and defensive coordinator Robert Saleh. But after Saleh left, the defense wasn't the same, and they struggled. Great coaching doesn't last forever. You have to take advantage of it when you can. For months, I've been saying Cam Ward is the best quarterback in this draft class. And now, it's finally becoming mainstream. NFL scouts are confirming what I've been hearing for a long time. Now, some might argue that Shedeur Sanders is still QB2, And I agree. But what's surprising is how far Jackson Dart has climbed in the rankings. However, let's be real. It's not even close between Ward and the rest. This year's draft class doesn't have a neck-and-neck competition like Caleb Williams versus Jaden Daniels or Bryce Young versus C.J. Stroud in previous years. This time, Cam Ward stands alone at the top. Will we even see another QB in round 1? Here's the twist. Ward might be the only quarterback taken in the first round. Why? Because this draft is loaded with elite talent at other positions. Wide receivers like Matthew Golden, Titai Roa McMillan, Luther Burden, and Emeka Egbuka are all potential first-round picks. Golden, for example, just ran an insane 4.29-second 40-yard dash, shocking scouts. With so much talent at wide receiver, teams might pass on a quarterback in favor of a top-tier playmaker. And if that happens, the Raiders have a tough decision to make. What should the Raiders do with pick number Aru? If the Raiders sign a veteran quarterback, they'll have a chance to draft a game-changing player at number 6, someone who can make an immediate impact. Think about it. Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter could transform the defense. A top-tier offensive lineman could solidify the front line. This year's offensive line class is unique too. Many college tackles will likely switch to guard in the NFL. But one thing remains true. When scouting O-linemen, arm length is everything. Height? Not as important. If you can't extend your arms to stop elite pass rushers, you're going to struggle. That's why NFL teams are laser-focused on measuring arm length and footwork at the combine. The bottom line. The Raiders need to make a decision fast. Do they gamble on a rookie QB, or do they lock in a veteran and draft an elite playmaker at number Aru? One thing's for sure. This draft will define the team's future. And with one of the best coaching staffs in years, they can't afford to waste this opportunity. NFL scouts just confirmed something huge. This draft class is loaded with offensive tackles, but many of them will end up playing guard in the NFL. That's a major shift, and it could shake up the first round. Take Kelvin Banks Jr., for example. Some doubted his size, but he measured in at 6 feet 5 inches with a solid 33.5-inch arm length. Not ideal, but good enough. This puts him back in the first-round conversation. On the other hand, Will Campbell? Different story. His arm length is only 32.5 inches, which is a major red flag for a tackle. History tells us that starting NFL tackles almost never have arms that short. That's why teams might see him as a guard instead. Tackle or guard? The debate rages. On this year, we might see 6 or 7 tackles drafted in the first round. But let's be real. Not all of them will stay at tackle. Many will transition to guard, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Some of the best NFL guards today started as college tackles, guys like Zach Martin, Brandon Scherf, and Tyler Smith. Even a highly rated prospect like Josh Simmons is in question. His tape is impressive, but his 33-inch arm length? That's going to raise some eyebrows. Some teams might still take a chance on him as a tackle, but others will see him as a dominant interior lineman instead. Who's the best OT in this draft? If there's one name that's making waves, it's Armand Mabai from Missouri. He has the best tape in this class, and even though his arm length measurements have been inconsistent between the Senior Bowl and the Combine, he's still projected as one of the first tackles off the board. Would he be a great fit for the Raiders at number? Aru? It depends. If the team believes he's their long-term right tackle, it makes sense. But if they're uncertain, they might opt for another position instead. Final thought. The Raiders' big decision. One thing is clear. The Raiders can't afford to miss on this pick. If they bring in a veteran QB, protecting him will be priority number 1. That means drafting a franchise right tackle or shifting a college tackle inside to guard. Whatever it takes to build an elite offensive line. When you watch the tape, some guys just dominate. They grab defenders and throw them like rag dolls. That's what we saw from Jackson P. Johnson at Oregon, from Tyler Smith at Tulsa, and from Anthony Belton at NC State. These guys didn't just block, they manhandled defenders. But here's the big question. Can they stay at tackle in the NFL? One of the most intriguing prospects is Charles Grant. Right now, he plays left tackle at William & Mary, but his elite measurements suggest he could stick at tackle in the pros. He's almost 6 feet 5 inches with an incredible 34.2 5-inch arm length, the exact numbers you want in a franchise left tackle. If he had been healthy for the Senior Bowl, his stock would have exploded. Just look at Darnell Wright last year. His tape was solid, but after a dominant Senior Bowl performance, he shot into the top 10. Grant could have had that same rise. Then there's Anthony Belton, and let me tell you, this guy is massive. He's 6 feet 6 inches, 336 pounds. That's 20-plus pounds heavier than most tackles, and in the trenches, the difference is huge. His size and strength make him a nightmare for defenders, but here's the catch. Can he move well enough to stay at tackle? Or will teams move him to guard, where he could become elite? If Belton doesn't work out as a tackle, expect him to transition to guard and dominate, just like Tyler Smith did in Dallas. Some scouts think he could be one of the best guards in the NFL within 2 years, Tyler Booker and Josh Connerly. 2 more big questions. Tyler Booker has the ideal frame and length for a top-tier guard. Some argue he's the best pure guard prospect in this draft. Josh Connerly Jr. measured shorter arms than expected, 33.5 inches. That's borderline for a tackle. He'll probably start his career there, but don't be surprised if he moves to guard in a couple of years. Final take. This draft class will shake up the NFL. The tackle-to-guard transition is becoming a trend, and this draft class is proving it once again. Some of these guys will stay at tackle, but history tells us many will shift inside, and that's not a bad thing. The teams that make the right call on these linemen could change the future of their franchise. The teams that get it wrong, they might regret it for years. When it comes to offensive linemen, one thing matters above all: can they hold their ground? If a lineman can't anchor, it's game over. That's why guys like Charles Grant and Anthony Belton stand out. They've got no issues holding the line. But Josh Connerly Jr., that's a different story. At the Senior Bowl, Connerly struggled at times to anchor. If that issue follows him into the NFL, he could have serious problems against elite pass rushers. Teams will have to decide whether he's worth the risk. Ariante Urser, a first-round talent. One name flying under the radar is Ariante Urser. He's got the size of a top-tier tackle, but his movement, that's where the hesitation comes in. Compared to Charles Grant or Anthony Belton, Urser just doesn't move as fluidly. Could he still go in the first round? Possibly, but teams value movement, and that could push him down the draft board. Holland Pierce, the ultimate wild card. Now, let's talk about a giant, Holland Pierce from Rutgers. At 6 feet 8 inches, 341 pounds with 36-inch arms, his measurements are off the charts. But here's the reality. Size doesn't always mean success. Watch his film, and you'll see the problem. He's not a great mover, and his tape doesn't scream NFL ready. Sure, his measurements got a lot of attention online, but tape doesn't lie. Expect guys like Tate Ratledge, Jalen Rivers, and Jonas Savaina to go ahead of Pierce. He's a developmental project, and teams will have to decide if they're willing to gamble on his potential. Quarterback drama. The Sam Darnold situation. Switching gears, the NFL free agency madness is about to begin, and the rumors are flying. One name that keeps coming up? Sam Darnold. Reports say the Minnesota Vikings plan to franchise tag Darnold instead of letting him hit free agency. That means if a team like the Raiders wants him, they'll have to trade for him. But what's he worth? A first-round pick? No chance. A second-rounder? Still too much. Maybe a third-round pick, but anything more than that? Not happening. With the draft approaching, the next few weeks will be filled with chaos, rumors, and big decisions. Some teams will get it right and change their future. Others? They'll regret their choices for years.